welcome everyone. Thanks for coming out this evening. This evening, what I want to look at is really I'm going to call it part 3. Is our second class dealing with the business plan. And the first part that we dealt with the overall feasibility analysis, which is just trying to get a sense of, is this business worth pursuing a business plan for? So we talked about that last week. And we also talked about the second part, which is part 2, which dealt with the initial stages, the introduction of the business plan, which went through some detail. Last week, we looked at the basic components of the business plan in terms of its introduction. And when we talk about the introduction, you're really putting the name on it, where it's going to be located, what the purpose of the business is, some sort of a history behind the business, an overview of the environment that the business is operating in, a description of what the business is selling and the service is selling, the basic business structure, how it's set up, and how it plans to do in the future. So you could look at that initial part as a big picture. Okay, it's very much at the 30,000 foot level. This is what my business is all about. People who read the document, particularly those who are potential investors, may not read the entire document. So you got to do it in kind of I'll call it a funnel process. And the funnel process just means that you put a lot of generic information up in the front. And as you move along further into the document, it gets more and more specific. And the idea is that if someone's going to read the front end, they'll have a good idea of what the business is. So you want to get as much information as possible in terms of the big picture up front. Tonight, what I want to look at was parts 1, 2, and 3 of the body. Okay, these parts are commonly found in business plans, and they don't necessarily have to be put in any particular order as long as these components are in there. Okay, so it's like the recipe, but it really doesn't matter what you put in first into the batch. So these you can consider as independent plans within the plan. They are subparts to the business plan. And when we think about the human resource section, really what you're saying to outsiders there is, this is who's going to be operating in my business. These are the people that are going to be behind it. This is the brains of the operation right here in the human resource plan. To yourself, the insider, you're thinking about who could potentially fill the potential roles in this. And when you think about a SWOT on yourself and your own strengths and weaknesses, you want to be able to hire people who compensate for your weaknesses. So if you're not so good at finance, you really need to hire someone who has a financial background or partner with someone who has more of a financial background. So the human resource component of a business plan addresses how you plan to manage your employees and human resource processes within the business. So it's very much dealing with people. It should also outline the short and the long-term plans for employee recruitment, finding people, selection, which is the actual hiring of people, the training, which is allowing people to develop their skills, and retention, which is making sure you keep the good ones. If appropriate, you're going to discuss a lot of this stuff with advisors, trusted mentors, people who could help point you in the right direction. So again, this plan to external sources could be very important because advisors and trusted people that you think could give you some advice would want to look at this section to say, have you thought about, or should you, or could you get someone who does? These types of suggestions will come of this. So what should the human resource part of the business plan include? Well, first of all, it has to include a basic summary of who are the managers in this organization. So those are your top people. And that would include yourself and potentially any co-partners, people who are at an executive level in the firm. It's also going to include an organizational chart that outlines visually who's responsible for doing what. It'll give a brief job description of each role and responsibility, who does what. Again, it lays that out. The essential skills required for each position. Again, you're going to look at that and say, okay, I'm really good at operations, but I'm not so good at finance. Again, cannot overestimate how important this part is. Really get you thinking about who are the people you need in order to help make this a success. Okay, so that's really what you're driving at with this section of the business plan. We also got to think about it from the point of view of financial obligations. It's very important to think about how much are these managers going to cost. And in terms of estimating the costs associated with your business, the more managers you have, the more costly it's going to be to run. Now, the benefit is more managers spreads the workload, allows you to bring in more skills, more success. but you also have to consider what is the cost of that. So that's that first component, okay? In most businesses, human resources is the largest expense to the business. The second division that I'm looking at here tonight is the sales and marketing plan. Within the business plan, this is a key component as well, a key plan. As I say, it can be very much a standalone plan that just deals with the selling and the communicating part of your business. What you want to be able to do in here is to clearly demonstrate that you have a good plan for getting the products that you're producing in your business into the hands of the customer. And you've got a good handle on the fact that there's enough hands out there, in other words, enough people looking for the product that you're making in order to make the company feasible. So when we think about a sales and marketing plan, fundamentally what you're going to be able to say in that is, here is what we offer. Okay. And when we think about the offer for a business from a marketing point of view, there are really four major components that we call the marketing mix. And this is the major components that a firm brings in terms of what it sells. Okay. It sells the product. Okay. It sells the product, and the marketing plan is going to really answer, how does this product service the needs of the people that you're going to sell it to, what we call the target market? How is it going to meet their needs? We're also going to ask ourselves, what is the pricing that we're going to put on those products? How much are you going to charge for the product or service? And most importantly, why are you charging it? Are you on a competitive parity? Are you selling at a higher price than competition? Are you looking for that, I call them elite market? Now, the challenge is with competing on price, or saying, I'm only going to charge a little bit for this. You got to ask yourself, will I make enough to be able to pay for all the other things that I'm going to talk about in this business plan? The staff you have, the building that you have, and all that. The price has to be sufficient when coupled with quantity being sold in order to cover your expenses, in order to make your business feasible. The place, where are you selling your product? How are you going to get your product to the customers? Do you have a central store? Are you selling it online? How are you distributing it? Are you doing it through Amazon, for example? Are you setting up a storefront in the town that you're selling in? Any number of considerations about place. And you could drill down and say, I'm going to have this size of store, or that the store is going to look exactly like this, or it's going to be in this section of the community. And we're also looking at the promotion. How are you going to make people aware that your product is out there, and basically connect with your market from that promotion? So those are four things that are very much in your control as a salesperson and a business manager. And you're going to want to give a good idea in your business plan of what it is you're selling, the price you're selling it at, how you're going to sell it, or where you're going to sell it, and how you're going to promote it. From there, you're going to go on and look at doing what's called a market analysis. And a market analysis, again, has to jive with those four B's that you just talked about. Because you're going to ask yourself, and again, we're part of the market research, and we've talked about this in the market research module, is you got to make sure that you have a market for your product. So market analysis is essential for the business plan. It should provide and prove to the reader that there is a market for the products that you're selling. So you're going to go out and do some research on that. You're going to say, oh yeah, there is certainly a market there for that. And how we're going to do that? Well, we're going to look at what type of competitors do we have? Who are they? What are the basic characteristics of the target customer? Who is the type of person that buys this product? How big is the market size, and what portion of the market do you anticipate getting? An estimation of your sales based on that. How many could you potentially sell? And what kind of trends are in the industry? Is this something that's trending up or trending down? Is this something that's going to grow or something that's going to shrink? So that market analysis, that's a few pages in a business plan that's going to really say, this is a happening product and a happening store or a happening idea. Because you want to be able to check all the boxes and say, yeah, I got lots of customers. I don't have a lot of competitors, and it's hard for competitors to come in. I want to make sure that the sales are going to be great, and that the cost of selling the product is not too great. and that the industry is on upward swing. It's something that has future growth. So if you can do that within your business plan, that certainly helps sell it to investors. So the purpose of this analysis is to set the stage for presenting your marketing strategy, which is how you're going to contact all those people. Okay. Strategy will lay out your plan. In the market strategy, you're saying, okay, well, now that I know what the market is, how am I going to get the price, the product, the place, and the promotion to line up to that to make that all click? So the strategy component will describe how you plan to provide products and services to your customers. So from it, a potential investor is going to have a really clear picture. Based on those parts, you got the basic 4 Ps, you got the market analysis, you got the market strategy. You need to be able to clearly and concisely say within this section what your specific plans are. And that's what that part of the business plan is all about. Someone's going to walk away from reading this and saying, I have a good idea of what they're doing, what they plan to do, and how they plan to do it. The operations plan is very much a practical part of the business plan. This part here, the operations plan, though, is very much down in the dirt. It is, how are we going to run this business? What are going to be our hours of operation? What's our store going to look like? It's very tangible, practical, front and center. This is what we're doing. So this part really forces you, when you build a business plan, to think about, imagine what my business is going to operate like. Okay, so it really puts you into the weeds, and it puts the reader into the weeds of how is this company actually going to do what it says it's going to do. This is very much an internal focus. You're looking inward on the business at this stage, and you're focusing really on the physical plant, the location, what will it look like, where is it located, how much revenue will it generate, how much will it cost to operate, what's the heat bills going to be, that sort of thing. The operational plans review all site, technical, and operational components of the proposed business venture. If we think about the site issues, let's look at what's going on with the site. We look at the site, we're asking ourselves, what are the potential sites for this business? Now, your business plan, when you write a business plan, you may not really have this absolutely hammered down. What you might want to do there is get a site A, site B, site C. Okay, you got it narrowed down to potential sites. So you should be able to, at this stage, what is the site going to look like? Even though you may not have an exact location, you want to be able to do a comparison of the potential sites that it could be and which one will be best. And this even works for home-based businesses, because you got to think about what is the floor space you're going to need. Do you have enough floor space? Do you have a separate entrance? These sorts of things. As I've seen a lot of businesses plans where the site, there's pictures of the site in the business plan, or a drawing, like a blueprint type of thing of what the site is going to look like. So you got to convey to the person reading the plan, this is what I'm going to look like when it's up and running. Okay, in order to make that site possible, what are some of the technical things about that site? Construction costs, for example, how much is it going to cost to build this? What are some of the items that I'm going to need? Do I need three-phase power? Okay, have I got a sawmill? What are some of the technical requirements of that site? And these things really need to be thought about before you say that's a good site, because if you don't have the technical characteristics necessary to make your business a success in that site is probably no good. Okay, so it forces you to think about, do the site and the technical requirements of the site match? When you're writing that business plan in terms of the site, what are the key elements that make it a good location? Okay, from a customer's point of view, from your point of view, from the technical point of view, and how you went about thinking about that is a good site. Have you put a lot of thought into this? Prove that you've put a lot of thought into this site. Demographic analysis. We talked about in the market research module, how demographics play in. Do you have people of the right age and the right gender and the right lifestyle and the right income in order to buy your products where you're selling it? And you also want to ask yourself, what's the competition? What's the nature of the competitive environment in the region that you're in? So those are important considerations that you want to have in your business plan. Now, you don't want to write in your business plan, there's hundreds of competitors here and I don't have a chance to survive. You got to write the business plan so that it's positive, but in your own mind, you have to ask yourself honestly, is there lots of competition here? Will I survive? So just in kind of summary, the site issues that need to be addressed: should the site be leased or purchased. Again, the great thing with leasing is you have to pay rent. Leasing is no different than renting. The rent is usually less expensive than it is a payment on a mortgage. And, so you have to ask yourself from a cash flow point of view, which option is better? What's the basic criteria you need for a location? Again, if it's an industrial business, probably location is not as important as if a retail business would be. Do you have adequate site access? Can people walk in? Can people drive in? Do you have parking? These sorts of things. Best location for physical plant. If you're putting a fish plant in, for example, it helps be near the ocean. Not a good thing to build a fish plant in the middle of the island. What's the cost of the site? Oh, you think about land. Well, not only land, you say, well, rural Newfoundland land is fairly inexpensive. Fair enough, it is. What does it cost to make that land workable? If it's all on rock and you have to blast, or if it's all on sand, it's not the best place to put a place. So you have to ask yourself, how much does it cost to make this store ready? Okay, so it's one thing to say, okay, this is a good site. It's another thing to say, how much does it cost to make it ready? Some of the technical issues, what type of equipment is needed. And when you do that technical assessment, see, that'll help you from a financial point of view. If you say, okay, I need this piece of equipment, that piece of equipment, and another piece of equipment, you add up the cost of that, and that'll give you a good figure on how much it's going to cost to get your business started, right? How much will it cost? How long will it take to get the equipment set up? You want to enter into the tourist business, and you're planning on starting all this in May, you're probably not going to get the tourism season. You started in February, yeah. So timing is critical for those sorts of things. What's the quantity requirements? How much do you go through? How much, how much of a lead stock do you need in order to meet customer needs when you start? Are you going to run out of supply? Who are your potential suppliers? Are they readily available? Can you get easy source of supply? How much raw material can you get access to? How much do you need? What's the cost of that basic supply? Do you have the right people and the right jobs? Do you have qualified people and human resources? And can you get them? Can the business attract the required talent? You paying enough? Are there enough people around who can do that? How much is it going to cost to get staff and to train staff? This is a big question. So those types of things really need to be answered, and answered well, within that component of the business plan. In a kind of a summary, you say, okay, well, my business is proven to be good from an operational point of view. Now you're going to paint a picture of what it's going to look like over the opening period, and probably look out into 3 to 5 years time. So show me what the day-to-day operations are going to look like. General description of how the day works for a business, the operating hours, these sorts of things. Facility requirements. What am I requiring? And what kind of information systems are going to need? Managing people, managing the money, managing all that. Something as simple as an internet. Do you have internet access to be able to do credit card transactions? Like, these are the sorts of things that you want to get hashed out in the operations section. You're also going to want to look at the inventory considerations. How much inventory do you need? How much is that inventory going to cost? How much is it going to cost to keep? So what's the minimum amount of product service you need over an appropriate period? And how are you going to manage the inventory? Because inventory is expensive, right? It sits there waiting for you to take it. But it also can grow legs, go bad, get frozen, things like that. What are you going to do to ensure that the inventory is safe? So from an inventory and material supplies point of view, you ask questions like, what and how many material supplies do I need to operate the business? How can these supplies be safely stored? What's the cost of the supplies? Who's going to supply it? What agreements do we have with potential suppliers? How reliable are the suppliers? That's important. How long does it take to receive the orders? And all these things are going to really play into how much inventory. Because if you can't get an order turned around very quick, you're going to need more inventory. If you can get inventory turned around, or if you can get an order turned around real quick, you don't need as much inventory. Again, there's a cost factor to all that. From a site point of view, again, the nitty gritty is, permitting and zoning. Like in Clareville, to set up, or most towns in Newfoundland, to set up a business, you have to get required permits. It has to be in the right zone. You can't put a business, for example, in the middle of a residential area. What is it? What are the permitting requirements? And your business plan really needs layout. This is what I need to do in order to make this work. Equipment requirements, the basic equipment that you're going to need, how much it's going to cost, where are you going to get them? Effectively, what do you need in order to manufacture and make that product go out the door so that you can start generating money? How much space do you need? Probably one that I haven't put there is, do you have room to expand? What's your space going to look like? Loading spaces, that's an important one too. Do you have a place that stuff can be delivered or sent out? And the parking requirements. So these are very much things that we don't normally think about. But again, the business plan forces you to think about them because you really need to put it in there. And finally, you want to think about what we call ancillary services. This is this support you need. For example, accountants, insurance, and legal services. Who are you going to have for that? And the business plan forces you to give some consideration in who potentially could be your accountant, your insurance provider, and your legal services. From there, you can judge how much it's going to cost in order to make all that happen. Finally, in this section, you need to put some sort of an implementation schedule. When do you plan to have this done? So we talked about Gantt charts way back there in the chapter on operations, and this is really where a Gantt chart comes in handy because it will clearly lay out what you need to do and when. So you're going to have some timelines in your business plan to say, okay, I want to get this business plan approved. I want to get money in place by July. I want to get construction started by August. Construction is going to be finished in December. Then I'll be ready to open in May of 2021. These sorts of things you want to be able to lay out. And what this is going to force you to do in terms of the implementation schedule is sequence. What is it that you need to do first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on. Very much this operations point of the business plan, operations part of the business plan, is very much down in the dirt. How are you going to make this work? And as I say, it is a useful tool internally more than anything. It's not so much an external selling document like the marketing plan was or human resource plan. It's very much for you to get you thinking about, how am I going to make this work? And if you can force it through your head first, you can certainly consider some of the things that you might have missed if you were to do it for real first without thinking about it. So it forces you to think about it and forces you to make good decisions with regards to it.